Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. As you all know, we are going to start the DevOps Zero to Hero course and today is the day one. I know you're all very excited and I'm equally excited as well. So today I'm here with the first day of the course, and as this is the first day, we'll start with the basics. What we are going to learn today is we'll try to understand what is DevOps, we'll try to see why DevOps, which are fundamentally these are the important questions for any of the DevOps job interviews. So let's say you are attending a DevOps job interview. If you don't understand the concept of DevOps, why you are using DevOps, what actually is DevOps, then the interviewer will lose you there. During the first 5 minutes, it is very essential for you to project yourself in a better way. So that's why you need to understand what is DevOps and why you have to implement DevOps. And after that, we'll see how to introduce yourself for a DevOps engineer position, whether it's a fresher position, whether it's experience. We'll talk about all of these things. How do we introduce ourselves during a DevOps interview? And then we'll also try to see the most asked question again during an interview is people will ask this question in different way. People might ask you, what are your day-to-day activities as a DevOps engineer? Or people might ask you, can you walk us through your day as a DevOps engineer? What do you usually do on everyday basis? So these are the four important questions that you have to know before you start with learning any DevOps tools, or before you learn how DevOps will fit into your software development lifecycle. These are some of the questions that you have to know and you have to have the answers for. And just not that, because these are the questions that usually people start with the interview, right? Whenever you give interview in a mang company or any startup as well, people would start with these basic questions. So always be confident and be prepared with what you are going to answer for these questions. So we'll start with one by one. So we'll see what, firstly we'll see what is DevOps, then we'll move to see why DevOps has come into picture, and we'll see how to introduce yourselves, and finally the day-to-day activities. Okay, so without wasting any time, so firstly, what is DevOps, right? So if you look at the textbook definitions for what is DevOps, there are hundreds of definitions. Okay, so if you go to amazon.com, they have a definition for DevOps. If you go to Red Hat, they have a different definition for their DevOps. But in general, like, what is DevOps, we will try to understand that one. Okay, so if you ask me, DevOps is basically a cultural, it's a culture, right? DevOps is basically a practice or a culture that you are adopting in your organization. Like, you cannot call it on a specific term, but in general you can say DevOps is a culture that you are going to follow that would increase your organization ability to deliver applications, right? So that's the end goal of DevOps. So if you have to put that in one single line, you can say it as a culture that improves the organizational's ability to deliver the applications. Okay, so end of the day, what any organization will do, any organization would deliver their applications, right? So the delivery is the key factor. Okay, so whether it's example.com, whether it's amazon.com, flipkart.com, what is the end goal of any organization? The end goal of any organization is the delivery, right? So let's say there is an organization called example.com. Okay, so if example.com is taking 10 days. Okay, this is just an example. Let's say example.com is taking 10 days to deliver their version of an application from V1 to V2. Let's say they are taking 10 days. Okay, or let's consider PUBG. Okay, so PUBG is one of the widely played games. Let's say there is an issue in the PUBG, or they want to introduce a new feature of the PUBG version. So if they are taking 10 days to introduce this version, everything is done. Let's say the development is done and everything else apart from the delivery point of view, everything is done. And if they have to hold their application for 10 days just to deliver, right, to deliver to the unit staging, then the staging environment, then finally to the production, then that's not a good practice, right? So what should happen ideally is, whenever there is a security issue or whenever there is a bug in your software, like you are using your Android mobile and all of a sudden your Android mobile has some bug which has the ability for the hacker to get into your mobile phone and hack your mobile phone. So what would Android do? They would quickly launch a new version and they'll say everybody has to upgrade to this version. Or if you have enabled the auto upgrade, your application would be, your Android would be auto upgraded. So all this process should take within like, if it happens within hours, then it is best. If it happens in 1 or 2 days, then it is also a good one, right? Instead of taking 10 days, if you can have the ability to deliver your new version in 1 or 2 days or couple of hours or in minutes of time, that is called DevOps. Okay. So DevOps is a process of increasing the ability to deliver your applications. But is it only about delivery? No. Okay. So that would be the next thing that we have to look at. So most of the times what happens is people would compare DevOps. Okay. Whenever even you try to learn DevOps, mostly people talk about CI/CD. Okay, if you're new to DevOps and if you don't know what is CI/CD, that's totally fine. Don't have to worry about it. But in general, people always look at DevOps as CI/CD, that is continuous integration and continuous delivery. But even in my previous slide, when I was explaining you, I said DevOps is about improving your delivery. But is it only about delivery? No. So DevOps is about improving delivery. Okay, that is something that we talked about, improving delivery. But how can you improve the delivery? If you have to improve the delivery, let's say, if you forget DevOps aside, let's say there is a company that is manufacturing chips, or let's say there is a company that is manufacturing some kind of biscuits. So if they have to improve their delivery, what is something that they have to do? They have to include the automation. Okay, so DevOps is always about, I mean, DevOps is also about automation. Okay. Now, let's say they have automated. So the chips are being manufactured in one single day. Okay. So they reduce the manual labor and they brought in new machinery that can produce the chips in one day. But is it okay? Is it perfect for the customers? No. What the customers would require is, apart from the automation, they would also look at the quality, right? So if you are manufacturing the chips in one single day, that's fine for me. But as an end user, what I'd be looking at is the quality. As a manufacturer, you would be looking at automation. Okay. And DevOps is also about monitoring. Okay. What is monitoring? So monitoring is nothing but, let's take the same example. So you are providing the chips, you have automated the process, you have also maintained the quality. But how would you ensure that your quality is maintained? You have to build in monitoring, right? So always make sure that whenever there is an issue in the quality, or if there is an issue in the automation, somebody has to report back to you, right? That is monitoring. And finally, there is one more important aspect, that is, any guesses here? You have quality, you have automation, you have monitoring. The other important aspect is testing. Okay, so testing is also one of the important aspect. So without testing, you cannot ensure quality, or you cannot ensure that your automation is correct. So now, if we take it the new definition, okay, in the previous slide we called DevOps as, DevOps is the process of continuously delivering in a quick manner, right? That is what we talked in the previous slide. But now, if we talk about the new definition, after learning all of these things, now I can say DevOps is a process of improving your delivery. I mean, making your delivery quicker by ensuring that there is a proper automation. You have ensured that the quality is in place. You have ensured that you have set up proper monitoring, and you have ensured that you have a continuous testing. So this is the definition of DevOps. Okay. So let's try to put that in. Okay, let me go back. Let me try to put that on a paper. Okay, for you, for anybody who is just starting to understand the definition of DevOps, what I would say is DevOps is a process of improving the application delivery. So I mean, you don't have to always consider it as an application. It can be anything, right? You can deliver an application, you can deliver a script, you can deliver anything. Okay, just for your basis, I just called improving the application delivery. But you can also consider it as a improving your script delivery, or any binary or anything. Okay, by ensuring, okay, DevOps is a process of improving the application delivery by ensuring that there is a proper automation in place. Okay, by ensuring that there is a quality that you have maintained, continuous monitoring. Monitoring is a very key aspect. Okay, people also call it as observability. So monitoring and observability are hand in hand things. Whenever we deal with or talk about monitoring, we'll also talk about observability. But for now, you can think monitoring or observability. And finally, there is a continuous testing. This is DevOps. Okay, so this is a perfect ideal world definition of DevOps. You can modify it on your own basis, but if you ask me during an interview, what I would say is, if somebody is asking me, let's say Abhishek is giving an interview, and interviewer asks me that what is DevOps, I would say DevOps is a process of improving the application delivery by ensuring there is a proper automation with a code quality that is maintained, or with a application quality that is maintained, and ensuring there is a continuous monitoring and continuous testing in place. Okay, now what will you achieve with all of these things? End of the day, your end goal as a DevOps engineer should be that there should not be any manual process, or during your application delivery you have to fasten up your process. Let's say your application is delivering in, you are hired as a DevOps engineer. Okay, so example.com is hiring a DevOps engineer. What would be the goal of the CEO or the team manager of the example.com would be, once a DevOps engineer is in place, what he'll expect from you is, if their application is delivered in 2 weeks, okay, so what would be the expectation from a DevOps engineer is, he has to reduce this 2 weeks to 1 week, but again, by ensuring that you have all of these things in place. And so this is a basic definition, okay, because today we are dealing with day 1, so I don't want to complicate the definition by including all of the things, like, I don't want to include the complicated terms like being cloud native or the all other things which will come in place. Okay, while we progress to the new or the next episodes of our DevOps learnings, we would include the concepts of being cloud native, we will include the concepts of being, serverless, but not today. Today you just understand these things, that is more than enough. Okay, but as we advance, what I want to tell you is, I'll talk about being cloud native, I'll talk about being serverless or shift left. So all those things will come in the next phases or in the next episodes of DevOps. But for today, I hope everybody is clear with this definition. Okay, so for a beginner, this is more and well and good to talk about DevOps. Okay, so now this is about what is DevOps. Now, if you understood what is DevOps and how to answer this in your interview, the most important thing is to understand why DevOps, because that would be the next question. So if your interviewer is really looking for hiring a good candidate, your interviewer would be asking why DevOps. Okay, okay, now I'll hire you, but why should I hire you, or why should I hire a DevOps engineer? So for that, the thing would be to understand why DevOps. Okay, now let's try to understand a very simple thing. Okay, so forget about the definition and everything. So what I'll try to explain you is, firstly, let's say, let's assume that there is a developer. Okay, so let's call him developer. I'm not sure if the color contrast is fine. Okay, so what this developer is doing is, he is trying to write the code for his application. Okay, so let's say the developer has developed this application. Now end goal is, whether it can be an Android application, whether it can be a static website, or whether it can be a web application, what would be the end goal for this developer, or what would be the end goal for this company called example.com. Okay, so once this developer writes the code, the end goal would be the receiving end, that would be the customer, right? So there has to be a customer who uses this application. So that would be my end goal. Okay, so developer is writing the code and customer is receiving the code. So what happens in between? Let's say DevOps is not in place. So let's go back to 10 years. Okay, so before 10 years, so what we are discussing now is before 10 years. So what happened was, before 10 years, when these people were not there, like the DevOps engineers were not there, what used to happen, or the process of DevOps was not there, what used to happen is, once the developer writes the code, so he used to check in this application code, because there will not be one single developer, right? There will be multiple developers. So they have to share their code somewhere. So they used to put that in a central location. And after that, what used to happen was, from this central location, this DevOps engineer or sorry, there was no DevOps engineer. So this guy who used to be called as a system administrator or a build and release engineer, what they used to do is they used to create a server. Okay, and what they used to do is they used to deploy this application. The developer has wrote the application, they used to deploy this application on the server. Okay, so let's call this as app. So the app is deployed on the server, and the next process would be somebody called a tester. Okay, so who is this guy? There is a guy called as a tester. So tester would test this application on the server that is created by a system administrator. Okay, then there is one more position called as a build and release engineer. Okay, now we are talking about different terms. Don't worry, I'll explain each and every term in a very simplified manner so that you will not be out of sync. So the system administrator has created a server. Now the build and release engineer, what he would do is that once the testers this application on the server, he would promote this application onto the next level. So either that level can be a production level, or that level can be a pre-production, or somebody also called as staging environment. So again, once this application is well tested on the pre-prod, this build and release engineer would take forward to the customer that would be on the production server. Okay, so these are the different processes that used to be involved. So let me try to simplify this in a easy manner. Okay, because we are talking quickly, you might lose me somewhere, so that I would try to explain in a simplified manner. What are the different terms that we called? One is system administrator. Okay, now the other thing that we also talked about is build and release engineer. Also there are some kind of people called server administrators. Okay, so for one simple process, all that we are talking is before 10 years. Okay, so all that I'm explaining is before 10 years. So for one simple process, what was the process? The end idea was to deliver this application from developer laptop to customer. There were these three different roles that were involved. Okay, so why there were, what were we developing? Application to production. So what I told, for this process there were these three people that were actively working. One is the system administrator. What was system administrator doing? He was creating a server. Why server is required? Because you cannot test the application on your personal laptop, right? In an organization, you might say that, okay, my application is working perfectly on my laptop. Nobody is going to listen, or nobody is going to trust. So end of the day, you have to test it on a server. So the system administrator used to create a server. It can be any platform, right? So before 10 years, there were no, typically the cloud platforms like AWS, people were not using. So people were using platforms like VMware, okay, or OpenStack. So these were the things that people were using, or any other, they used to have their own hypervisors to create, like Zen, for creating the servers on their bare metals, because before 10 years everything was a bare metal. So the system administrator created a server, and then what happened is, on this server somebody has to install the application, right? Because developer has created the application on his local, and he has checked in his code onto SVN or CVS or any version control system that is a centralized code repository, because everybody has to access it. So the code repository developer has pushed, and then the build and release engineer. So now this guy has came into picture. What he has done, he deploys this application onto the server. Now, to deploy this application onto the server, there has to be a application server on this server, right? So application server is the one that holds the application onto this server. So the server administrator used to create this app server. Okay, what is this called? App server. So because multiple parties were involved. Now, for the understanding purpose, I just explained all of these rules. So in a real world scenario, before 10 years, there were other roles as well. So even if you take these three roles, for simply delivering the application from your personal laptop or from the developer laptop onto the production server, what was happening? It was involving system administrators, it was involving build and release engineers, and it was also involving server administrator. So the entire process was taking, for example, 10 days. Okay, so the DevOps, or the world of DevOps, has emerged or evolved because of this very own reason. That is because multiple people were involved, because all of these is a manual effort. Okay, So whenever there is a manual effort, your process will be slow. So to automate this entire process, the word or the world of DevOps has emerged. Okay, is it clear? So what was happening? The system administrators, build and release engineers, and the server administrators were working closely or working together to deliver your application from your personal laptop onto your production, that is for your customer. So because everything was manual and different teams were collaborating, the process was taking more time. For example, I said 10 days, but it could be 1 month, 2 months, or it could be also 5 days. But the entire communication and the entire system was not effective. This was 10 years old. So now to improve this process, what has happened? Everybody has moved to a new concept called DevOps. Now I understand. Now I hope things are clear. Okay. So why DevOps has evolved? DevOps has evolved for this very own reason, that is to improve the process of delivery. So that is something that I explained you in the second slide. Okay, so DevOps is a culture. Why is it a culture? Because unlike the previous times, unlike 10 years old, there are no multiple teams now. So previously there are multiple teams, but now there is only one single team. So that's why it has to be a culture, or it has to be a way of working. Because as a DevOps engineer, tomorrow there might be a new tool that improves your efficiency, so you have to adopt to it. Or you might have to pivot or take a change in the process of your working. And if it improves your efficiency, somebody comes, like your CTO came and said that okay, we are using this tool, if you introduce the other tool that we are not using, our efficiency will be improved. As a DevOps engineer, you have to have that mindset to adopt to the new tool. Or as a DevOps engineer, it's a culture that you are building in your organization. So that's why we say DevOps is a culture that improves the delivery process by following all of these things that I have explained, by adopting to the automation, by ensuring that there is a quality in your application, by ensuring that you are continuously monitoring in such cases, like there can be a failure, or there can be something that is not working as expected. So that's why you also have to have monitoring. And finally, you have to continuously test your application. By involving all of these things, you improve the efficiency of your organization, and that is the role of DevOps engineer. I hope the things are clear. So now you understood what is DevOps, why DevOps, right? Now, the next thing that we would learn here is how to introduce yourself as a DevOps engineer. So I've seen many people fail here, okay? Because even when I'm taking some interviews, when I ask people like, how, like tell me about your day-to-day activities, or introduce about yourself, what happens is people tend to not explain everything. Or sometimes people have an opinion that I should only be explaining about myself in 1 or 2 minutes. No, there is nothing like that. Okay, whenever, let's say, you have something unique, or you feel that you need more time, like not in 1 to 2 minutes you can explain about yourself, take your own time, that's fine. If you want to explain about yourself, or if you want to explain what you are doing in a day-to-day basis, that's totally fine if you take more time while explaining yourself. But to explain or to introduce about yourself, what you can simply say is that I am working as a DevOps engineer, that is for sure, from past any number of years that you want to put. Like let's say you are working as a DevOps engineer from past 4 to 5 years, because you cannot say that I'm working as a DevOps engineer from last 10 years, because DevOps itself was around, like from last 10 years, and it has been very popular from last 7 to 8 years. Like if you say our organization has adopted DevOps 10 years back, then interviewer will lose you at that point itself, because that's not the truth. So what you have to say is, I am a DevOps engineer. I have overall 5 to 6 years of experience, 4 to 5 years of experience in DevOps. And before to that, I was working as a system admin, or people say that I was working as a build and release engineer, or people also say that I was working as a server administrator. It is up to you. Okay. And even if you're coming from other backgrounds, like you might be a Java developer, or you might be a Python developer, or you might be a simply automation engineer, you can also say all of those things. Okay, but always try to put your previous experience also in place. If you are a fresher, you don't have to worry about all of these things. You can simply say I just started working as a DevOps engineer. I was passionate about learning DevOps and all of those things. But if you are a seasoned software engineer, or if you have experience in DevOps, or sorry, if you have previous experience, always mention your current experience in DevOps, and also try to put what were you doing previously, because that is really important for somebody to understand from which background are you coming into DevOps. Okay, like if you are a system administrator and if you are just switching your career to DevOps, as an interviewer I can correlate and understand, okay, he has some experience in servers and servers and administrating servers, so okay, he can be of this use in my current organization. Like if I am interviewing a person and if he has past experience in system administrator, I can think of it like, okay, because we are using AWS, his experience might be useful for me in administrating this AWS servers, or he can help me in automation or migrating my existing physical infrastructure to on-prem, cloud infrastructure. So I can think of all these things as an interviewer. So that's why whenever you are explaining someone, if you have experience in something before DevOps, always try to put that, and don't try to lie saying that I have 10 years of experience in DevOps. That is not truth. Nobody is going to buy that argument from you. Okay, so once you explain this, what you are currently also, I have 4 to 5 years of experience in DevOps. I'm previously coming from experience of system administrator or build and release engineer, or if you just have experience in DevOps for past 2 to 3 years, you can also say that. After that, explain about your roles and responsibilities. So in the current organization, I take care of automation. Okay, you can say of these things, I take care of automation, I ensure that there is a quality that I'm maintaining for the applications, I ensure that I have set up continuous monitoring, and I have automated the testing process into the DevOps lifecycle. So this is how you introduce yourself. And if people are looking at the tools and technologies, like let's say you want to include the tools and technologies before, even before your introduction, even before you deep dive into your interview, like during the introduction phase, people also talk about the tools and technologies. I don't really suggest that, but if you want to talk about the tools and technologies, or if your interviewer is asking you about the tools and technologies, you can say that you are working on the platforms, like for the CI/CD I'm using GitHub Actions, or for the deployment of application onto container orchestration I'm using Kubernetes, or you're using configuration management using Ansible, infrastructure automation using Terraform. You can explain about all of those things. But for this class, because I have many audience who are just learning DevOps today, and today is the day one, right? So I don't want it to complicate and explain the DevOps definition or the introduction of DevOps using all of those aspects. So for today, you can just say these things, like explain what is your current experience in DevOps, explain what is the background that you're coming from, and then include these key factors, that is the 4 pillars of DevOps that we just talked about: automation, quality, monitoring, and testing. So this is how you introduce yourself in a DevOps job role. Okay, so for today's class, I think this is more than enough. Now what you will do is, because you understood what is DevOps, why DevOps, just Google around, try to understand what is DevOps. Like you get hundreds of blogs. Most of the times, these are the things that would be repeated, like the 4 pillars of DevOps or the 5 pillars of DevOps. So because you completed watching this video, now if you Google around, you might find some new things, like you can explore those new things. But if you have any questions, you can also post them in the comment section, so that let's say you found something new in DevOps, in the definition of DevOps, you can put that in the comment section saying that, okay, Abhishek, I Googled around, I found this thing, how do you think about this? Should I also include this in my introduction? We can discuss that, and I can also, if I find that interesting, I can also talk about that in my next video. Okay, so I hope you found this video useful. So one thing that I would request everybody is, we are going to do this like 40 days of DevOps classes from day 1 to day 40. I've already explained in my previous videos what is the course curriculum, what is the syllabus, and what are we going to talk day by day basis. So if you haven't watched the previous videos, go to those videos, watch them first, so that you understand what is the way of explanation, or what is the process that I'm going to follow in this 35, 40, or 45 days of DevOps course. And finally, don't forget to subscribe my channel if you haven't subscribed. And if you have any friends who are looking to learn DevOps, please try to share this video with larger audience, because that is our end goal. The whole purpose of keeping this course free is somebody who is interested in DevOps will be benefited out of this free DevOps course if they don't want to, if they cannot afford to pay for a paid course. So it should be useful for everybody to learn DevOps. Okay, so I hope you like the video. This is day one, and tomorrow we'll come up with day two, where we'll be talking about software development lifecycle and what is the role of DevOps in software developer lifecycle. And also, we'll do a pre-cap of what we learned today so that you will be in a sync, right? Because before we go to day two, we'll just quickly recap what we have learned on day two, sorry, on day one. And if there were any questions on the comment section that I find or that I feel that I have to take up so that everybody will be benefited by picking up that question, I'll also do that. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.